This is Solo Travel Talk, the Japan series. Your solo travel advisor and host is Astrid Clements.
If you have been following your solo travel advisor Astrid Clements podcast series on Japan, you know how much Astrid enjoyed exploring the country, seeing all the natural beauty, dining on phenomenal foods, learning more about the culture. But Astrid has also mentioned that Japan's solo travel has some challenges too. The language barrier is real, banking needs some planning, and if you can believe this, Wi-Fi can be hard to get. I'm producer Catherine O'Brien. Thankfully, Astrid is here with all her notes about how to navigate some of the challenges of solo travel in Japan. Plus, Astrid has a whole batch of tips that will make Japan as wonderful for you as it was for her. Here's Astrid.
So Astrid, I know that you like to think of travel in terms of tips and to-dos and those kinds of things. So do you have any initial tips for the person who's hearing this that wants to go to Japan?
Okay, I'm going to try to bottom line these, but I do have 30 tips. Sorry, gang. But I think you should know this.
This is why people come to you, though. They want these tips.
You never know when this will be super important that you heard it. So get a pencil and paper out if you really want to remember it or you feel like it. But what I'm going to do to try to make it a little bit more to where you can remember it or think about it is I'm going to categorize it, whether they're transportation tips, food tips, money tips, etc. So we'll start with the transportation tips. If you are traveling really to more than one city in Japan, you should buy the JR Rail Pass. And this is just like a Eurail Pass, and you can go all over Japan on the JR rail lines, and that's where the Shinkansen is. It's a great pass to have. You can buy it for 7 days, 14 days, or 21 days. It's not expensive. I think that the 7 day is $210. But to ride on these fabulous trains, it's worth it because the train stations are right there. You have the pass. You go through a special line. There's no waiting. I mean, you can get there 5 minutes before the train, and there's no problem. You can ask the attendant, how do you get to the right track? And you're up there and you're ready to go. It's really good. And then if you're going to multiple cities, I think it's a must. One thing about it, though, is you have to purchase it, or really you should purchase it. I think you have to purchase it as a foreigner before you get to Japan. So I bought it online. And it's not activated, though, until you go to the station and you get the JR Rail officials to stamp it. And one thing you want to do is to have it start on the day of your first train trip. You don't want to go to the station the day that you get there, and you're going to spend 5 days in Tokyo, and you want to use it to go to Kyoto, and you only have 2 days, and you're going to be in Kyoto for 5 days, so you have to pay for the train back. You want to time it exactly right, but it's a good investment, and I did it, and I thought it was wonderful. Then there's another service that is kind of transportation related called Yomato, and I didn't know anything about this before I went to Japan, but it is a luggage forwarding service.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh, it is fabulous. What you do is you go to your hotel concierge, or the convenience stores will actually do it. But you tell them your next stop is Kyoto. You can leave on this day. This is your hotel, the address. You give it to the concierge. They give it to whoever, the Yamato service or who's in charge of that. And you get to your hotel, your bags are there. And so you don't have to lug them through the train station. Most of the train stations have escalators and elevators, but some of the tracks don't actually, specific tracks. And look, if you don't have to have luggage with you, all you have to do is have your backpack or your fanny pack or your crossbody purse. I mean, you're just ready to roll. You don't have any of that hitting your legs or worrying about you're going to leave it in the restaurant. It is great, this service. And it's cheap. It's really inexpensive. It's $20 to send your suitcases. Plus, there is one thing, too. I think it was some of the reason why it was created is because on the bullet trains, they don't like the big suitcases in them because they go so fast and they'll be hurling around and they don't fit well in between the seats. So you put them in the back and they don't like that at all. Know that there's a luggage forwarding service. It is great. Also, when you're using the subways, invest in what's called a Suica or a Passimo card. I got the Passimo because these Americans were right next to me and I was looking at it and they said, oh, we come to Tokyo all the time. Passimo is better than Suica. But I think they're basically the same. But what they are is an IC or a prepaid card, kind of like a prepaid debit card. And you put a certain amount of money on it and you get it in a machine. Say you want to buy one for $100 and you can use it in subways, all public transportation, convenience stores, some vending machines. And in Japan, vending machines, oh my gosh, they are the greatest. I thought, boy, that's a really good business. If I was younger, I would maybe think about developing a vending machine business that had really good products in it. They have really good stuff. And it's easy. They use their Passimo card. And then when you run out of money, you just top it up. Mm. And when you go through like using it on subways or the reader, it'll tell you what your balance is. So it is really good because if you have to go and buy a ticket and all that, but if you have it right there, you just hit that little reader, you go right through and it's seamless. At the end of the trip, if you haven't used all the money, all you do is go to the station attendant and they refund your balance. So you don't lose anything. It's great. That's Japan for you. They figure out how to solve problems before causing more problems or stress because they have a lot of people that they have to move through some of those train stations and subway stations, etc. So they figured out how to do it. Highly recommend that. Okay, technology. Now, this is, to me, the weirdest thing. I was so blown away with this. But when you go to Japan, basically, you want your smartphone to work. You have to rent a pocket Wi-Fi. You have to rent your own Wi-Fi, or you can't get on the Wi-Fi, even in your hotel, some of your hotels. So just know that you have to rent it. Now, some of it, you can reserve it online before you go. But I would really suggest you just, when you land in the airport, you find one of the kiosks and you rent one for how many days you need it. And then when you leave, all you have to do is put it in the little bag with the cords and everything and drop it off before you catch your flight. But you have to have it.
This was a surprise for me. I thought because of the technological advance of Japan or whatever, that everything would be Wi-Fi, but you set me straight on that.
Oh, yeah. It was so odd. And with these little units, you have to charge them up every night, and they do go down. I had several extra battery packs, and I thought, this is Japan. That's so high tech. It's different. I can tell you, it's very different. And also, if you want to use Google Translate or Google Maps, you have to have this. I mean, your phone really doesn't work. Even to call the United States. It's a safety issue, number one. And then the second, all travelers have smartphones now. So if you want them to work in Japan, you got to rent this pocket Wi-Fi. The second thing, and write this down, you need to make a note of this website. It's called JISHO.org. It is basically the kanji dictionary. Now, kanji are the symbols that make up the written language of Japan. And I can tell you, you will not be able to figure this out. You're going to be lost in the soup. It is something else. I felt like I could kind of do it a little bit in China, but Japan, they seem to be bigger and more little things going on in them. They're almost like emoji characters or something like that, but they have different meanings when they're next to different things. Oh, that is a very good website to help you if you're trying to understand the written language. And then even more important than that, you have to download a translation app. Google Translate is great because you can put it, make a little picture and it translates, but then it's not always exactly the case, but it's usually pretty close. So you can figure it out for the most part in what it relates to. The next is the apps. The two bottom line apps you have to have is Google Maps, because for starters, in so many places, they're not even street names or numerical addresses. And then if there are, it's in kanji. So you have to get Google Maps. A lot of times it'll get you exactly where you're going, but sometimes it won't even get you exactly. You're just kind of in the area. And then you can't read the menus if you don't have the Google Translate. They do have photos, but you want to know a little bit more about what you're eating. And of course, you don't know what to push on those toilets. You better have your pocket Wi-Fi and your Google Translate because you might get a shock. Okay, those are two really important apps. You must get some kind of feel for using them because you're going to need them. The next is money category. Cash is still king in Japan, which here again, a country that's so technologically innovative. You have the Suica card, the Passimo. They still like cash. Always leave your hotel with ample cash because lots of restaurants and shops just don't take credit cards. And on top of that, the next tip is their ATMs. Most of them don't accept foreign debit cards or cards that allow you to get money. You can only go to these specific machines in the post office, city banks, or those 7-Eleven convenience stores. Those convenience stores have got it going on, I can tell you. But don't think you can get cash out of the ATMs when you run out. And they have a lot of ATM machines, but your foreign card will not work. Okay, number 9, money tip. Do not tip. They don't tip in Japan. If you tip somebody, they will be offended. So it's really kind of freeing. I mean, I don't want to say that because it's fun to give tips if somebody really earns it and you had a special time because of their service. But it's not mandatory in any kind of way. And do not do it because they're going to be offended. Save a little money on tips. Okay, the manners category. Now, this is kind of some of these cultural do's and don'ts. When you're greeting someone with a hi, you also bow. And they really have 3 levels of bowing. Basically, a stranger that's just, another person, you have just a little bow. It's plenty enough. They're going to bow to you. You're going to bow to them. Someone that has more of a prominent position or you really respect or whatever, they get a medium bow. Okay? And they're not probably going to bow as much to you. And then somebody who is really top dog, or top person, excuse me, for you animal lovers. That was kind of tacky anyway. But they bow full waist. I mean, they really bow. And bowing comes so natural, you'll find yourself just bowing away. You can't just go and say, hi, my name is, could you help me? You need to first say hello and kind of give a little small bow. This is a left country. Stand left, walk up the stairs left, look left, just like England. When you go up the escalator or stairs or crossing the streets, it's left. So remember that because it's kind of hard to get used to a little bit at first. It really is. You just kind of fall back into your old habits, but it's a left country. Oh, this is another one. Do not blow your nose in public. Now, I know that sounds so tacky, but they'll drop their mouth. I mean, they'll just go, oh, that is so offensive to the Japanese. So you have to blow your nose. Hold it. No. Try to find somewhere where there's nobody around or the bathroom and go turn on the music in the toilet.
And the special flushing sound, right?
Okay, number 14 is in certain places you still have to remove your shoes. Certain temples, shrines, some restaurants, even in some bathrooms. And the ones there, they'll give you toilet slippers. Oh, yeah. And of course, it's spas. But your cue is to see if there are other shoes in front. Everybody's taking them off. And they usually have bays and everywhere to put them. Tip, always wear socks. Every day you're going to take your shoes off probably once. So just bring shoes that you can wear socks. And after that happened for a while, that's where the trend wearing socks with heels came from. Because in Japan, you're going to have to take off your shoes if you want to go have lunch somewhere that requires you to do it. 15 is if you're a smoker, then you only smoke in designated areas. And in Japan, they have designated areas. The smoker is not like persona non grata. Of course, they don't like it, but you have the areas in front of the train stations. There's still quite a few restaurants that allow smoking in certain rooms. Just know that. So you can smoke, but it's only in key areas, and it's not like you can't go outside to smoke. You can't go outside to smoke in front of the hotel. It has to be outside where the hotel wants you to smoke, or in this particular bar where they allow smoking, that kind of thing. Okay. Then if you are giving or receiving a business card, most people who travel know this, but hold the card with both hands. That is a show of respect. And typically you give a little bow with it too. And if you receive it, you take both of it with both hands. You look at it and then you turn it over and look at the back. And it's just a respect for the other person. That's very important. And you're going to get cards from hotels, from shops that maybe you want to go back to, or restaurants, etc. So always receive it or give if you have a card with both hands. Another little tip is every hotel you stay in, get a card from the hotel. In the event you get lost or you're exhausted and you don't want to try to figure out how to get back to the subway and you need a taxi, all you need is to show them the card. And it's all written with all those kanji symbols. Because most of the taxi cab drivers will not understand English. Then the queuing, like I talked about, make sure that you queue in the designated areas, and they're in subways, trains, in front. So that's just part of the manners. Okay, another subset of the manners is food etiquette and food tips. Slurping is okay. Now, isn't that weird? They like quiet, calm, but slurp away. That is fun. As well as if you want to finish the liquid of your soup, you don't have a spoon. It is fine and dandy to pick up that bowl with two hands and drink the liquid. Number 20, don't eat and walk. They are not one of these people like eat on the go. No. You eat in the restaurant and then you go on about your business. It's no eating while you're walking down the street. They really don't like that. Even ice cream cones and stuff. No, just sit there and eat it first and then start walking. Also, don't eat every last bit off your plate. They like if you leave just a little bit there because they take it as an insult that you're still hungry. They know that you like the food if you eat it and you leave just a little, that the meal was good. But if you eat it all, they think you're still hungry, you're kind of greedy. There's some negative connotations, so just leave one little bite left. Kind of like the British, you're not supposed to eat it all. Just leave a little bit there. Okay, chopsticks etiquette. Oh my God, those chopsticks, they just elude me. I cannot use chopsticks well. It's horrible. I was there like almost a month and I'm still fumbling with them. It's ridiculous. But I tried because you don't have a choice. They have chopsticks with every meal, so you better get used to it. There are a few restaurants at the hotel. They'll go find you a knife and fork and spoon, but you're going to look like such a nut. Don't do that. Just struggle with the chopsticks. First of all, how you lay them down. Correctly, you put them on the top of the place setting, on top of the plate on a chopstick rest, pointing left. Don't lay them on the plate or put them slanted on the plate. Definitely do not stick them in the food. And if they're wood and you only have a paper sleeve, put them back in the paper sleeve, put it at the top of the plate, point it left. That is really important because they have all kinds of negative connotations. One is a funeral offering. Don't stick it in your rice. You stick it in your bowl of rice like up and down. They are like, oh, I'm serious. The chopsticks thing, they have a very refined connotation to using them and what you do with them. Okay, now just basic personal hygiene or cleanliness. I know we've kind of talked about it because of those fancy toilets, but when you go to the shrines and the temples, you should take part in what's called the purification rite, which all of these temples and shrines, they will have like a fountain with running water, usually has a roof over it, and there will be ladles there. And what you do is you put some water in the ladle and you pour it over both of your hands. Then after you've done that, you take some more water and cup your hands, and then you put it in your mouth. You rinse your mouth out. You actually spit it on the ground. That's what everybody does. But in order to go into one of those temples or shrines, that's what you need to do first. So do it. To you, it might not feel extra clean or whatever. What's the point? But they all do it. So you should do it. That's a tip. And that's why they do it. Then, again, know how to flush and use the toilets. Because if you don't, you might be shocked. I know one time, this is so horrible, but my battery ran down, so my phone ran down, so I couldn't use the Google Translate, and I was scared to push the button, so I left, and I know the next person went in there and went, oh, but they knew what button to push. I know I'm making a big deal out of it, but let me tell you, everybody talks about this because every Western person has the same reaction.
It's one of our basic functions, and it's difficult if there's challenges too.
Yeah.
Wait, are we going to have an episode just on the electronic?
We could. Let me tell you, we could. Okay.
Yeah.
Then I talked about dispose of your own trash, bring a little plastic bag or whatever. Just don't throw trash anywhere. Also, if you have tattoos, know that you will not be able to go into a spa or an onsen. The Japanese are very superstitious about tattoos. A lot of their criminal gangs have tattoos, so they connote tattoos with a person who's criminal, or have a criminal bent. So just know that you won't be able to go into the spas or the onsens if you're tattooed. But if you're walking down the street, basically just cover the tattoos as much as you can. This might be a trip breaker for you and you don't go to Japan because of this, but it's part of the culture. Okay, then miscellaneous tips. You might want to hire a guide because the language is so difficult and you're going to miss a lot. Definitely go on the day trips because they will explain a whole lot of stuff that you will it'll go whoop, right over your head. 28 is before you go, do as much pre-trip research as you can about the culture, what you really want to do. Try to map out even the areas where some of the things are that you want to do. Because you don't want to allow yourself to get overwhelmed. And you will. I'm telling you, you will. Because of the language barrier and having to go from point A to point B. And it's not so easy to do. And then what you're seeing is different. And all of that swirling together, you can get overwhelmed. As well, the next tip is make sure you kind of plan every day, the day before. Go to your hotel concierge. Show them what you want to do. Let them advise you what to do first, second, or third. Or if they wouldn't do this, they'd switch it to another day. Get them to put on the map where these places are, even if you can't read the map. Then get them to write down the subways and anything in kanji you need. Be prepared before you leave the hotel, because you will get stressed out. It happened to me, and I'm really good at this, and I rarely get lost. You really need to stay organized and planning. The last tip is a Zen travel mindset. Basically, is just keep that flow. Stay in the flow. Don't try to do too much. And keep your energy level and your activity level in balance. Don't allow yourself to get overstressed. And I did tell myself before I went, and I think I told Catherine, that I'm going to do this trip with a Zen mindset. Because I usually like to just do all kinds of stuff, because I just love this stuff. I'm just so curious. But this, I thought, no, and if I can't do everything, I'm going to just let it be okay, etc. And I did that. It served me well, because Japan can be very challenging, which I think leads to our next question.
I was going to say, that is the perfect segue there, Astrid. You were honest with me when we were meeting before the show. There are some challenges in going to Japan. You've alluded to some of those, but I'm wondering if you can go a little bit more in depth with our listeners on some of the challenges of traveling in Japan.
Oh, yeah. Most challenges, though, I have to just kind of preface these challenges, can be solved either with pre-planning or knowing travel essentials or getting help before something would cause a problem. And money will solve everything. In Japan, yeah, if you want to pay for this, that, and the other, they are happy to serve.
Or one of those convenience stores. It sounds like those convenience stores are magic.
Yeah, that or the train station. When all else fails, head to the train station. And on the way, if there's a convenience store stopping there, they might solve your problem before. Okay, here's my list of the 10 biggest challenges. Absolutely, number one is the language barrier. Few people speak English or any foreign language, and that was such a shock to me, even in Tokyo and Osaka. But they've never had to learn the language. Most people that traveled to Japan were on business, and they would hire interpreters and everything. But now Japan is focusing on tourism, and they're trying to modernize in this area. But it's not there yet. And like I said, kanji symbols, impossible to decipher. So think about Google Translate, and then if you have to, spend the money to hire a guide or take the day trips or day tours. You'll be glad you did. So that's the first thing to overcome the language barrier. Get that Google Translate, have the concierge help you, and then the private guide or day tours. Chopsticks is the next thing. That is, to me, a big challenge. I really did try to be able to be cool with chopsticks, but it is hard. And it's hard for a lot of foreigners to use them. And you eat every meal with chopsticks. So just be prepared. It is challenging. Okay? And don't think you're going to wolf your meals down, because you're not. You're going to have 3 pieces of rice that you can't quite even get to stay on it. But thank God it's sticky. Okay. The next one, if you need over-the-counter drugs, or you think you can go to some place like Walgreens that have a lot of different stuff, which that's in the convenience stores. But anything like over-the-counter drugs, medications, or prescriptions, there are very, very, very few drugstores or pharmacies in Japan. Oh, don't lose your meds, because it'll be hard to find a pharmacy to refill them. Now, you can give it to your concierge if you have the bottle, but then they're going to have to figure out how to translate it into kanji and what they have. So that is a problem. People who need these kinds of things, you need to bring an ample supply. And if you like aspirin or, any over-the-counter things you think you're going to run in and get, you're not going to find a pharmacy. Because I ran out of aspirin, and I do like aspirin. especially if I'm feeling kind of achy and tired, I'll take 2 aspirin. Whoo, I'm ready to roll again. I ran out of aspirin and I couldn't find one. And then finally, the last day, I found something when I was in Hakone. But this is pretty much everywhere because the Japanese are so healthy. They eat something from the land and the sea. They don't get sick. They're not a society that imbibes or uses drugs. They're really not. There's not monthly going to your drugstore to get your meds. You just don't see that. Mm. That was really astounding to me. I thought that was very inspiring. If they can do it, we can do it. But know that before you go. Then, another challenge, sitting at those low tables. You will want to go to some of the traditional restaurants. And when you do, the tables are low, the chairs are low. And some people are not going to like that. It's going to be extremely uncomfortable for you and even challenging. But if you do, there is a proper way. For ladies, they put both legs to one side. And for men, they cross their legs. If you go to a tea ceremony, some people even sit on their knees. Oh man, that's really bad. But I went to one. I didn't do that. I just sat on the floor and put my legs to the side. But you have to know that that's challenging. And some people will not be able to do it or they don't want to do it. And there are other traditional restaurants, not totally traditional, but you can get traditional food that you're not sitting at the low table. That's no problem. But there are a lot that still have the low table. And the Japanese like it. It's just all part of the whole essence of eating that kind of food in that kind of environment. 5, like I told you before, most of the ATMs will not work with your card. So you need to know where the post office is in relation to your hotel. Every city you go to, or at least some convenience store that you know that you can access money with your debit card, because you're not going to want to bring a whole wad of cash for 3 weeks, but you're going to need cash. So you only want to take what you need during the day. So just know you're going to have to be prepared. Number 6, it is easy to get lost in Japan. They have so many narrow streets and alleys. And like I said, there's no numbers or street signs. When there are street signs, it's in kanji. Very few have English lettering. I mean, very few. And even when you use Google Maps, it doesn't quite get you there. It is something.
I can feel your frustration.
Oh, I got lost one time that it's too long to go into, but I finally made it by the second. It was terrible. But it's very easy to get lost there, which that's kind of a bummer. And I have great sense of direction. So you have to know you have to kind of slow down, know you might not be able to do everything. And usually you'll finally get there, but it's not as easy as you think it is. Okay. And always know there's the taxi, and they have lots of taxis. The taxis are unbelievable in Japan. You're like being chauffeured in a lot of them because they're super clean. They all have some kind of slip cover on the seats. A lot of them have lace slip covers, or at least on the headrest. Some of the drivers still drive with white gloves. The doors, a lot of them open automatically for you. You just feel like you're royalty when you get into a cab. Now, they're expensive, but they will get you from point A to point B. So if you feel lost, you can't find the subway station, you're just kaput, get in a taxi. Most all of them take credit cards, which is really, really good. You don't have to pay in cash. Okay. For people who are picky eaters, a lot of times you're not going to really know what you're eating. You definitely can't read the menu. Now, you're going to see photos, but that doesn't tell you everything that's in the dish or everything. So just be prepared. You might be eating something that you don't know what you're eating, but it's not going to be bad for you. Don't worry about it. Unless you don't ever want to eat bacon or something, Number 8. The beds tend to be hard. And I mean, when I tell you, even in 5-star hotels that talk about, oh, they have wonderful bed, they are like boards. Everyone I slept. So you might have restless sleep if you can't get used to them. And I have wide shoulders and my shoulder was going up. I mean, I got good pillows, but the beds, they are super, super firm. So just know that. Number 9, you can feel overwhelmed at times. If the language barrier you've had 2 times, you're trying to find something and you're just exhausted. In fact, I'll tell you that story that happened to me. I had been walking all over Kyoto and I had ended the day in the Gion district. And oh my God, I was so lucky. I saw Maiko. I had my phone ready and I could take a picture of her going into a tea house all dressed up and everything. So I was so excited. And then I knew I was close to the Michelin star restaurant, the only Michelin star restaurant that I went to while I was in Japan, that I had a reservation for. I couldn't be late or I couldn't partake in the meal. There were only 9 places to sit for this meal. This was like a temple of food. But I knew that my reservation was for 6:30. So I was kind of winding it down by 5. And I thought, well, I know it's close. And I kind of knew where it was on the map, but not totally. So what I did is I started walking from outside the Gion district. There's a temple and a park and some shrines. And I started walking to the left up the hill, and I was going to where I thought the street was. And I got there, and I couldn't find anything. No sign, no numbers, no kanji, no nothing. And there were other things on the street. So then I saw at the corner, there was this kind of like a modern hotel, like kind of boutique hip hotel. So I went in there. Thank God there was somebody who could speak English. And she said, no, it's not here. It's down the street and to the left. So she said, go down like about 3 blocks and go left and then take a right. It's right in that area. So here I go down the hill. I'm really tired from a whole day of walking. And I get in this area and I'm looking for it. And this guy comes up to me and he kind of looks at me like, can I help you? And I'm showing this in kanji. And he says, I don't think so. And he looked like he lived in the neighborhood. And I said, yes, I know it's around here. He said, I don't think it is. It's not. When he tried to get me to go to another restaurant, I said, no, I want to go this. So then I got out of that area and went back on one of the streets that I knew, and I kind of got back to where that temple was. And I wanted to start over and see if I could figure it out that way. Now it's about 5:35, maybe 5:40. And I saw this chauffeur with his super clean car waiting in front of a beautiful building. So I thought, well, maybe he's waiting for his client to come down and he's going to take him. So I went up to him. I said, do you speak English? And blah, blah, blah. He said a little and everything. So I began to tell him what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go. And he said, well, I don't know. And he was kind of nice and helpful. Then I was trying to get a taxi. And right at that time, there were no taxis that were coming down the street. So after a while, he came up to me and said, I will take you. Now, I never get in a strange car. But in Japan, and he was so well dressed and everything, he takes me back up to the hill to that street. He puts me in that area, and he says, right back in there. I still can't find it. Even the chauffeur didn't know, and he knows everything. I was almost in tears. It was like 6:20, and I mean, it was hot, and I had it. But I've already paid for this $200-something meal in advance. So I start walking down the street looking, and there was a restaurant. I went in there, and it wasn't the restaurant. So I see this young kid, and he can speak English. I said, do you know where this is? He said, I know where it is. I'll take you right to it. So he walked me back down that street that I walked up that hill like 3 times. He took me in the alleyways, and I finally found it in there. There would be no way anybody could find it. And I made it within 3 minutes to spare. I wanted the whole barrel of sake at that point. You can easily get lost. And if you have a couple of those, you are totally kaput. You want to go back to the hotel, you jump in the onsen. It is really rough. So just know you can get overwhelmed because of the logistics and the language. And the last, you might experience some bouts of homesickness. And I'm not a homesick person, but I stayed long enough, and that does usually come in to if you stay longer than about 10 days as a solo traveler. I mean, some people experience it more, and I rarely experience it because I'm traveling in my mind when I'm at home. I'm not a homesick kind of person. But I was there 3.5 weeks, and I could kind of feel it creeping in from time to time. And it really is rooted in the lack of being able to communicate easily and all this foreign culture. And you begin to long for the comfort or the ease of your culture and your home. So know that's going to happen to you. So when that does, don't get all like, I want to go home. Listen to the news in English in your hotel room at night and in the morning. Take a day tour or whatever in English. Go to the spa. Take it easy. But be prepared for just a little bit of homesickness because of all of this foreignness. It seems like it should be easier, but it's not. If you're prepared, and then take some time off. And that's when I started doing this deep personal reflection. On the other side of the homesickness and a little bit of the difficulty, I got a lot of personal enlightenment about myself, my life. So that was a byproduct of the challenges of the trip, which I didn't expect that at all. And I guess it's just in the nature of human nature like that. So those really are what I think are the basic challenges. Everything else is no problem. And if money is no object, you don't have any problems in Japan.
Thank you for listening, everyone. We hope you are enjoying the Japan series. Subscribe to Solo Travel Talk on your favorite podcast app. This podcast is available on Apple Podcast, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify. Any fine place that you can get your podcasts, you will find Solo Travel Talk. Don't forget, of course, the Astrid Travel Club is now open. You can go to Astrid's website, astridtravel.com, and then right there on the top of the homepage is a tab for the Astrid Travel Club. It's really for like-minded travelers who want to experience things with the Astrid flair, as we're calling it. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Solo Travel Talk, the Japan series.
Find Astrid on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. All things Astrid, including the Astrid Travel Club and this podcast, are available at astridtravel.com. Thank you for listening to Solo Travel Talk.